Hi everyone, L.A. Jacobson here, and today I want to begin to tell the story of being Phil Ivey's expert witness in his lawsuit in 2014 against Genting, which was the corporation that owned the Crockfords casino in London. So I did, in fact, go to London and do all these things. I was in court, I testified, I wrote the expert report. And I just want to talk about what that experience was like and maybe help shed some light on what this whole edge sorting thing is from a completely different point of view that you haven't had before. So, as usual, I'm going to go with my PowerPoint Phil Ivey story, episode 1 on becoming Phil Ivey's expert witness. So, how does this proceed then? Well, Phil Ivey won a lot of money in Baccarat in 2012. And the thing was that he used this method called edge sorting, and it was kind of a dubious method. He was taking advantage of the asymmetries that were in the playing cards. Now, if you look at these cards, you will see for yourself that along the right-hand side, the size of the diamonds is not the same as the size of the diamond on the left-hand side on either one of these two cards. And so there's these microscopic imperfections in cards allow them to be used in order to sort the shoe, to sort the cards that are being played, to be able to distinguish two groups of cards. And in Baccarat, typically what you want to do is to be able to distinguish high cards from low cards. In other words, you want to sort the cards in such a way, and this is just an example card, that if the card was a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in value, it would have the large diamonds on the left edge. If it was a 6, 7, 8, or 9, it might have half diamonds along the left edge. So using this information, again, we always talk about it being information that gives us an edge. This would allow Phil and his teammate Chung Sun to determine whether the first card to come out of the shoe in the next round was going to be a high card, 6, 7, 8, 9, or a low card, 0 through 5. And if it was a high card, well, that card gets dealt to the player hand. So that strongly favored the player side winning. And if it was a low card, 0 through 5, well, that strongly favored the banker hand winning. So depending on which card they could foresee was going to be dealt the next round, let me just show you what I mean by that. You could see, for example, the bottom edge of the shoe, and there it is. Based on being able to see which card was going to come out as the first card in a round, they would know whether the banker or the player was the better bet to make. So that's all there is to it. Well, in theory, that's all there is to it. There's a lot of other stuff they had to do to make this work, and perhaps it was all that other stuff that led to their ultimate defeat in the courts. So what I want to begin with in this episode, and I'm envisioning 3 or 4 parts, we will see, and some of that has to do with, do I get any feedback from people who are involved in the case in one way or another asking me to cool it? If not, I'm going to tell what I can. Now, my edge sorting history begins back in 2001, and this is when I discovered entirely on my own that cards were asymmetric. And after having discovered that, I went over to Stanford Wong's office building there on Decatur in Las Vegas and met up with Las Vegas Bear, and I held up a deck of cards and I said, watch this, and I demonstrated edge sorting. And at the time we were hole carding 3-card poker, and we didn't want to, this just seemed like something that was obviously could be used, but we decided not to for whatever reason at the time. But it was quite a discovery just to see that the cards were asymmetric, and then notice just how many decks were asymmetric. We showed it to a lot of other APs, but we never used it. Now, skip forward a few years to when I was working for the casino industry. My first article I ever published on edge sorting was the article, It's in the Cards. And I published that in 2006 when I was a consultant with Compton Dancer Consulting. They had a magazine called Table Talk. I included warnings about edge sorting. I used to do projects where I would do on-site marketing visits, and I would be a secret shopper. And as part of that, I was always asked to sort of give my overall impression of the safety measures they had in place in the casino. And I would never fail to just bring up the topic of edge sorting, their particular card, because the point was practically every card at every casino I visited could be edge sorted. And I was just trying to spread the message. Back in the Orleans casino in 2009, I actually helped one of the table game vice presidents there figure out that they had a team that was beating them using edge sorting at their double deck blackjack game. Essentially, we determined there was no turn in their shuffle, and so they were getting beat simply by edge sorting teams. It had been going on for over a month before I solved this for them. So I mentioned edge sorting on page 114 of this book right here, Contemporary Casino Table Game Design, that came out in 2010. So edge sorting was certainly part of something that I was talking about. That article, it's in the cards. I republished that article in 2011 when I was a consultant for Raving Consulting, based out of Reno. I presented edge sorting on Baccarat at the World Game Protection Conference in February of 2012. This is when I was a keynote speaker at that conference, and so that is one of the topics I brought up. I also presented edge sorting at the International Association of Casino Security when I was an invited speaker. This was in Cambodia of June of 2012. So I also wrote 3 articles on edge sorting that appeared in my blog, AP Heat. These articles came out August 13th, 2012, August 18th, 2012, and then I wrote another one in May of 2014. And just to make sure you know what I'm talking about, if you go to my website, advancedadvantageplay.com, here it is, advancedadvantageplay.com, and you go across to AP Heat, you'll notice one of the categories is edge sorting. And if you look down this list, I have edge sorting in Baccarat, edge sorting in Baccarat update number 1, but I also have Baccarat the known card, which is another article where edge sorting comes up. So I had 3 articles here. 2 of these, in fact, appeared prior to Phil Ivey's work in the casinos in England. So my work, my warnings, everything I was saying predated Phil Ivey well by many, many years. I was putting out this message first as a player, telling other players you could do this, and then when I worked for the casino industry, over and over again, trying to warn the industry of these dangers. So going on, what happened was that I was on a few radio shows in 2013 and 14. This is after the Phil Ivey. It was known that he had done this. And then, in fact, I even made an appearance on the CBS News. This was a nationally broadcast segment. And let me play this for you. Hit it.
Phil Ivey calls himself the greatest poker player of all time, but this morning a casino in Atlantic City accuses him of being something else, a cheat.
In a lawsuit, the Borgata claims Ivey swindled nearly $10 million. Benita Nair shows us how the Ivey allegedly beat the house in several high-stakes games of Baccarat. Anita, good morning.
Good morning. As a well-known pro poker player, Phil Ivey was allowed to make a lot of requests. When he visited the Borgata in 2012, he requested a private pit, a particular set of playing cards, and an automatic shuffler. Initially, the hotel was happy to oblige the gambler, but now they think Ivey made those requests just so he could cheat.
Phil Ivey is a celebrated high roller, winner of 9 World Series of Poker bracelets and nearly $22 million in prize money.
Ivey with the best hand still.
Yeah, when you're Phil Ivey, that's how the flop comes out for pocket sevens against 4 opponents.
But at the Borgata in Atlantic City, Ivey is considered a hustler who allegedly pocketed more than $9.6 million by cheating at Baccarat.
200.
The card game made famous by James Bond, where the object is to pick a hand that adds up to 9.
You seem to be unbeatable, Mr. Bond.
Court documents claim that Ivey and a female accomplice studied the edges of the playing cards for telltale imperfections. Once Ivey knew the value of those cards, he could then make big bets when those cards were redealt. It's a tactic called edge shorting. Gaming consultant Elliot Jacobson says playing cards often have irregular patterns along the edges because of printing errors.
The casinos should be more careful with the cards they use, but the truth is that most of the decks of cards that are out there have some sort of design flaw.
According to the Borgata lawsuit, Ivey visited the casino 4 times in 2012. He was betting as much as $100,000 per hand. The casino says edge shorting gave Ivey at least a 6.5% edge over the house, or more than $6,500 won for every $100,000 he wagered.
By itself, there's nothing inherently wrong with edge sorting. The question is, what else did he do? Did he involve the dealers in some sort of collusion? Did he work out some sort of deal with the card manufacturer?
Borgata officials finally caught on after Ivey's 4th visit, when they learned he had been accused of edge shorting by the London casino Crockfords, which withheld more than $12 million of his winnings just 2 months earlier. Ivey filed a lawsuit to force Crockfords to release his earnings. This time, he's betting on the law.
This morning, CBS News received a response from Ivey's representative. He says Ivey takes the matter seriously and will defend himself against any question of his integrity. Now, edge shorting has never been declared illegal anywhere, which means Ivey's cases could have the potential to set some pretty big precedents.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it's illegal.
Because it's his mind that's remembering.
Yeah, well, he also had a female accomplice, keep in mind. So between the two of them, they were ensuring they knew where the cards were placed.
Yeah, but they got the cards from the casino.
Absolutely. By special
That's what
request, though, also.
Yeah, but they still gave him the cards. I mean, I don't know anything about this game.
So how did
I don't know what I'm talking about, Wellness, but it doesn't. I'm like you guys. What did he do? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game.
Yeah, but what about the female accomplice? Can she talk to him during the...
It's interesting. One of the requests was that they had a Mandarin Chinese dealer, and she spoke Mandarin Chinese. So one of the allegations, potentially, is that there was also some conversations had that were not above board.
The story gets deeper.
Yes, it does.
Anita, thank you.
Continue. Thank you.
Okay, well, one of the things I hope you heard was that the poor reporter kept on referring to it as edge shorting. I think that she did not get a complete brief on what was going on. So I was well known. The point is, I was well known among a certain group of people for having an expertise in edge shorting. And that somehow led to my name being floated around as somebody who may be a candidate as an expert witness. So meanwhile, back at Crockfords, just to refresh your mind on the timeline, April through October of 2012, Phil Ivey and Chung Sun, they won $9.6 million by edge sorting at Borgata. And in August of 2012, the exact same month my 2 articles came out on AP Heat, Phil Ivey won $11 million by edge sorting at Crockfords in London. And then Crockfords simply refused to pay Phil Ivey. And this is why Phil Ivey filed a lawsuit against Crockfords and Genting to try and recoup the money that he believed he won. So Phil Ivey sues Genting for non-payment of his August 2012 winnings. So, meanwhile, back home, I was contacted in February of 2014 about my availability to be Phil's expert witness. I met with one of Phil's attorneys over dinner down in Long Beach. I was on my way to Macau the next day. I just happened to be spending the night down in that part of LA, so that's where we met. And we had a great conversation, and I was very excited. It seemed like it was going to be a perfect fit, and I just expected that I would be Phil Ivey's expert witness. So that seemed like a great meeting to me, but then what happened was crickets. I did not hear anything at all, just crickets, crickets, crickets. I kept my schedule open. I turned down work. I was thinking, after all that enthusiasm, surely they want me. And in fact, I did hear that back from them. The next time I heard from them was June 18th, 2014. Okay, June 18th, 2014, they said, do you want to be Phil's expert witness? And I dropped everything and said, yes, absolutely. So as part of being his expert, what they really wanted, contacted me on the 18th, was an expert report. And they said, look, we need an expert report as soon as possible. How long do you think it would take you to write an expert report? And I said, 2 weeks to a month, right? Sort of typical to gather all the facts and a few revisions and that sort of thing. They said, how about next Tuesday? Really, that was the conversation. So I was given a weekend to write an expert report on Phil Ivey. Now, something went wrong, right? Something went wrong along the way. And I know what that is. I know why they waited to the last minute to tell me. I signed the letter of engagement on June 18th to officially be hired. And part of that engagement letter reads as follows. By signing this letter, you are confirming that you will treat all information, facts, matters, documents, and all other materials which come to your attention or result of this retainer as confidential, except insofar as you have to refer to them when setting out the substance of your instructions in the report. You will also keep confidential the fact that you've been instructed as client's expert, save as otherwise directed in writing by this firm. So I can't tell you why they waited to the last minute, because that's confidential information. But you got to realize it kind of sucked, right? I got 4 days to put together an expert report on a case that is worth millions, $11 million. I got 4 days, right? 4 days, $11 million. Now, the reason I can tell you this now is because that's a matter of public record. My report was submitted to the courts in England, and so as such became a public document. My being Phil's expert and testifying is now a matter of public record, so I can go on record saying, yes, I was Phil Ivey's expert. Beyond that, you can see by this disclaimer, there is a whole lot I cannot share with you, and among those things is why they waited to the last minute to ask me to be their expert. Well, okay, so now I'm Phil Ivey's expert, and I've got 4 days to write the report. So what did I do? Well, the court asked 3 questions. There were 3 questions I was asked to answer in the report. And I think these are great questions for you to think. How would you answer these questions if you were the expert and you had to write this report? So essentially what's going on here is the court is trying to figure out what information can the experts tell them that will be most useful in helping them decide this case. So let's have the court ask these experts these questions. The experts will answer. The court will read the expert reports, and that will go a long way towards figuring this stuff out. So here's the 3 questions. Question 1, is the practice of edge sorting well known in the casino industry? And one of the reasons I started this video by laying out my history with edge sorting is so that you could see what my answer to that question was, right? In very personal terms, you can see what my answer to that question was. Question 2, is edge sorting practice in casinos? Is it an ongoing activity? Is it being practiced? Are there people out there edge sorting? Question 3, and this was the toughie. Is edge sorting considered by the casino industry to be contrary to the rules of baccarat and or to be cheating? Or is it to be considered to be a legitimate gambling technique? Now, as an expert, I should be able to back this up with some data or some evidence, right? So imagine answering question 3, and you've got 4 days, and you have your opinion of this, right? But you have to back this up with facts. So what do? Well, those are great questions for you to think about, right? Because this is where I was on a Thursday when I got this thing. And, well, what happened? I started on the 19th, June 19th. Between June 19th and 22nd, I logged 47 hours according to my timetables. 47 hours in 3 days. I didn't sleep. Well, no, I pretty much didn't sleep. I produced what I thought was a great report. And that great report landed with a thud. So, what was the thud? This much I will tell you. I use the terminology social engineering for what Phil Ivey did in order to succeed as in edge sorting. And social engineering, if you look that up on your Wikipedia, it has roots in Europe that date back to what the Nazis did to convince people to commit horrific crimes. And so sort of geographically and in that part of the world, there's still this sort of, that words don't work, right? That word does not work. That whole concept doesn't work as an argument. It might work just fine in the United States, but social engineering is taboo in Europe. So there had to be a new basis, a new framework for how Phil Ivey managed to convince the casino to do all the things they did to allow him to edge sort. And the new framework was this concept of gamesmanship. And I agree, gamesmanship is a perfectly valid substitution for social engineering. If I didn't agree, I wouldn't have done it because this was my report. I can do what I want, right? I can do what I want with my report. They have no say. I'm the expert. I write my report. But I understood in that moment that social engineering would no longer work. So all of my arguments had to be rewritten in terms of gamesmanship. And that little bit of change required 21 straight hours of work to fix the document. In all, it was 71 hours in roughly 5 days. And I just got sick. That was just more than you could possibly believe. But in the end, I produced an expert report. And I'll tell you something, you do a report that fast, and it is going to have errors in it, right? Because you're not going to get everything right when you're working at breakneck speed. So yes, I had a couple errors, and a couple of them turned out to be larger errors than I wish they would have been. I may talk about those later. But you're here, you're with me, so let me give you a teaser. My expert report is a matter of public record. So next episode, I'm going to reveal parts of it to you. I'm also going to talk as much as I can about a quick trip to England that I made. And I want to just talk in general about my sense of this case, even early on, and this has nothing to do with matters of confidentiality, just my sense that something wasn't quite right. And we will get to that next time. All right, everyone. What do you think? Was that interesting to you as a starter? I am hoping that this kind of thing will be of interest to you. I have wanted to do these videos or write a series of essays or say something for a long time. And one of the people who have been commenting a lot in my YouTube channel really encouraged me to begin this project. So this is the first video on the topic of my work as Phil Ivey's expert. So we'll see how this one goes, and that will pretty much determine where I go from here, whether I can complete this series or whether somebody puts the hammer down on it. We'll see what the external forces have to say about that. All right, everyone, this is Elliot Jacobson. See you later.